Love and Longing. "It's beautiful," he says as Mironoir leads him to the edge of the platform. The sweeping mountains and fields of golden wheat swaying in the breeze, beyond which a rich dark forest looks like a second sea of green beyond. Massive ornate castles with elaborate banners flap in the breeze. It's an artist's wet dream of a shining kingdom come to life. "I've missed this place." Mironoir sighs next to him. "A paradise," he says before turning to smile. "Though not half so beautiful as you, my dear," he says, and she leans in to kiss him. The moment is ruined by a loud awe from the surrounding people, and he gives them a bit of a stink eye, even as Mironoir giggles and gives him a hug. "Come on, I can't wait to show you the family home. The rest of my mothers and my father will love to meet you," she says before leading him off. Her felt backpack, shaped like a shell, bounces off her tail as she shows him the way. The backpack is interesting. She had imbued so much axiom into it that it was the size of a large closet internally, but was apparently still empty externally. A trick that Vernon had not only learned himself, but taught to his fellows on the Dauntless. His luggage was in his left pocket. "Keep up!" she teases before launching into the air, her dress flapping like a flag as she hurls through the sky and landing lightly on the next jump platform. She turns just as Vernon lands beside her, a smile on his face and a spring in his step. "Easily done until the end I'm with you," he says, and she leans over to kiss him on the cheek. "I know, just making sure you've got all the speed you need to help with the tournament. It's only a few weeks away," she says, and he smirks. "Now, follow me." She launches herself into the sky again and looks back. He's not there. Something's wrong, and she skids to a stop when she next lands. "Hey," Vernon says, putting a hand on her shoulder. "That's cheating," she chides him with a tap to his stomach. He smiles in return. "Oh, very well. Let's soar instead," he remarks, and she scoffs before smiling. "Come on, then. The family manor isn't very far," she says before launching herself into the air. The harsh feel of the wind against her as the laws of physics try to tear her dress to pieces, and failing before her will is as heady as ever. A slight difference in the flapping, and she glances to the side. Vernon is just out of reach with a smile on his face as he looks over her home and seems to fall in love with it further. She had been so worried he wouldn't like it and would avoid visiting. She lives in Centris, but Serbo would always be home. She slams into the ledge of a mountain and nods to herself. Each of her leaps was many tens of kilometers, and Vernon kept easy pace. A few more and they would be home. He lands softer and softer over the next two jumps, causing her to glance back each time. She never loses him, and he's never not beaming with joy. But something is up. Is he experimenting as he follows her, refining his gifts with axiom even as he spends time with her? He really is a sorcerer born in another race, isn't he? That gushy, gooey feeling returns as she feels herself smile. She's living in a romance novel and sometimes still can't believe it. Perhaps he'd like to walk through the dark forest, the traditional home and refuge of sorcerers from the days of antiquity. They were all drawn to those places on the world where the stronger winds seemed to sound out strange words, piping tunes and clacking tempos that many sorcerers claimed as their teachers. Yet there was danger there as well. Some of the mightiest beasts beyond the Apuk dwelled within, and even the trees themselves could take offense to your presence, especially if you brought fire into their midst. "Is something the matter?" he asks her, and she glances back as they descend. They're just a single leap away from home now. "No, I was just thinking. Would you like to go on a walk through the dark woods? Sorcerers for ages have found it to be a place of enlightenment and wisdom. Perhaps it will be one for you as well?" she asks, and he smiles. "I'd love to. Though to be frank, you'd likely have to look long and hard to find something to do here that won't have me fascinated and delighted. I mean," he turns to hold his arms out to the sky, "a whole new world to explore, cultures and traditions and sports and music and entertainment and so much more. How can it not be fascinating beyond description?" he asks, and she giggles. "I suppose it is still quite the novel experience to you. This is the third world you've ever been on, isn't it? Your Earth, Centris, and now Serbo, your wild world, the overdeveloped Centris, and now lush, tranquil Serbo. Come, it's time for you to meet more of the family. We will settle in, and after a lunch I will show you the parts of the deep forest where the old legends walked." That sounds wonderful. Lead the way. He invites, and she smiles before jumping into the air again. This time she isn't lucky and has to twist in the air to dodge another Apuk launching herself through the atmosphere. The younger Apuk gasps as Vernon full-on catches her. "Sorry, miss," he says, and they both vanish. Mironoir spots them appearing at the small platform she was going to land at. She lands with the girl sputtering and meekly backing away. Considering that her Vernon maybe comes up to this woman's stomach, it's a rather amusing sight all around. "I apologize for my husband. He's overly cautious with those around him. No doubt he feared you would be hurt by a fall," Mironoir explained. "Oh, she wouldn't have? My apologies then," Vernon says. "Oh, no, by that I mean. I beg your pardon, princess and sir. Fare thee well." She stammers out, looking from Mironoir to Vernon and back again before leaping away. Are princesses feared?" he asks, clearly misreading the situation. "No, we're respected. However, she must have feared giving offense, perhaps because she felt the stirrings of desire for a certain foreign sorcerer." She teases him gently. "What, me? I'm still wondering what I've done to deserve you most of the time, let alone how I'd somehow attract even more attention." "You silly man. You're still getting used to living outside of cruel space." She chides him before giving him a kiss. "Don't you worry about it. Just one of 1,000 little differences between all the different races. We all have them." "All right, but it does seem to be something I'll have to worry about." He notes as she gestures for him to follow and begins walking off the jump platform. "So," he trails off and clearly rethinks his questions. "Are those platforms normal? A circle with arrows pointed every which way?" "Low sky lanes. We Apuk are very powerful and we can move faster than most things. Running at ground-level craters soft terrain, shreds plant life and kills animals. All of those are on top of the major risk of tripping. So we jump. But to where and from where? The jump platforms. Reinforced podiums that let all Apuk know that you can launch yourself from this place without damaging the ground, and each of the arrows lets you know which way and how far to go. I was actually hoping to have a chance to do a little rescue, but then you had to teach yourself to soar." Mironoir explains with a raised eyebrow. "Sorry, I didn't realize you wanted a little moment," he says before flickering to her side. "How can I make it up to you?" he asks as he puts his hand around her waist. "Later, Vernon, later. We do have to introduce you to the rest of my family." She whispers, and he chuckles. "Of course, shall we?" he asks, and she gives him a kiss on the cheek. "Let's go, and try not to get overwhelmed. I'm fairly sure you've never been among a family as large as my little clan. If worse comes to worse, I can pull a fairly convincing vanishing act," he remarks with a chuckle. She gives him an odd look. "I know when I'm getting overwhelmed. It's something Sir Philip made sure everyone on the Nerd Squad knew without exception. I have exit and calming strategies, don't worry." "You keep saying that you're exceptionally poor at social skills, but I've never seen you so much as stumble," she remarks. "Is someone just being humble?" "No, someone just had professional training and tutoring for skills he has a hard time picking up naturally. All sorts of little tips and tricks are being followed even now," he explains. "Oh? Such as?" she prompts, somewhat fascinated. Eye contact is important, but staring someone right in the eyes is unnerving. So only give them a glance before letting your eyes wander. Examine their face, their surroundings, glance away like you've heard something. Just make sure things don't devolve into a staring contest or, God forbid, a contest of dominance. He explains, and she blinks in confusion. Something that simple was beyond you? A lot of the unwritten rules about social behavior were just never obvious. So I was taught all the important parts, some add-ons and how to learn and self-improve, a change of mindset, become a student of the social world rather than someone stuck inside it. He explains, and the sheer idea is somewhat fascinating. And the most important part is to treat mistakes as something exciting, something to learn from and examine, another chink in your armor you now know to correct, he says, and she shakes her head. You keep telling me that you're bad at this, but you've yet to stumble, she chides him. Practice, 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 not to mention the simple trick of pretending that a mistake is what you meant to do all along. And when have you done that? A few times. My goodness, the day we met I was trying to keep out of trouble and all but ran into your arms, he says, and she gives him an odd look. No, really, I babbled like an idiot, let myself get carried away and all sorts of little mistakes. But by rolling with them, as I was taught, it turned out for the absolute best. After all, I have you now. Vernon explains, kissing her lightly on the lips. Well, if those are the kinds of mistakes you're making, then let's hope you don't make too many with my family. I'd hate to have to share you so soon. She gushes at him. Share him so soon. She does have to share him eventually, to let someone else in on this slice of perfection she's made for herself, inevitably ruining it as something flawlessly balanced for two will fall apart when stretched for 3, or 4, or more. What's wrong, my love? He asks her, stopping their trek to make sure he has all the time he needs to help her. Nothing. Nothing's wrong, and that's what's wrong, she exclaims as she begins to sob and then hugs him as tightly as she can. Miro! What's going on? He asks as she sobs into his chest. He was quick enough on the reinforcement so as not to be crushed, but it was a near thing. It won't last, she sobs before crushing down on the sensation and getting control of herself. This was immensely improper and not at all fit for an Apuk warrior, let alone a battle princess. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, darling, that was unseemly of me. Don't apologize. There's nothing to apologize for. Do you need a few minutes? No, I'm all right. I don't want this to end. But it will no matter what I do. Life is full of change, my love. It's up to us to harness it for the better. Now let's meet the family. I'm quite curious as to what kind of man fathered so lovely a young lady. Oh, stop, you goof. She chides him, a smile back in place, but the nugget of worry remains. No matter what someone will learn of him if they haven't already. Then will come the questions as to why she alone is his wife.